You may not know this 6'5", 245-pound burly man. We call him Big Bear. He looks like he could play tight end in the NFL or wrestle in the WWE. Drew Westervelt is a pro lacrosse player. Non-traditional in height and weight, however. He's also the founder of HEX Performance, an advanced laundry detergent for athleisure wear, and claims there's a real problem with mass laundry solutions out there. They actually do not kill bacteria in our clothes. Rather, they fragrance them, and HEX has the solution. Drew's a dear friend of mine. He's super impressive, and I'm excited to share our conversation with you. Enjoy. When we launched this podcast, we launched our website, suitinguppodcast.com. I encourage all of you to check it out for show notes, links, etc. And when we built the Paul Rabil Experience and Rabil Events, we also launched a website focused on colorful, creative, and effective digital solutions to appropriately build our business. Your website is your platform. And for all of you entrepreneurs out there, I want you to check out Squarespace. Squarespace does a number of things really well. And as an entrepreneur, you can launch your business and create a beautiful website or online store with their award-winning templates. They're also an all-in-one platform. There's nothing to install. There's nothing to patch or upgrade, ever. Squarespace provides award-winning 24/7 customer support, which is a huge pain point for most people that outsource website design. You don't have to worry about that with their customer support engine. And they're flexible for any kind of website. Squarespace is used by a wide range of creatives, people, and businesses. Musicians, designers, artists, restaurants, podcasters like me, and more. And now here's how you can get aboard Squarespace for listening today. Use offer code RABIL for 10% off your first purchase of a website and domain. That's Rabil, R-A-B-I-L. Visit squarespace.com, use offer code RABIL, and get 10% off your first purchase of a website and domain. That's Squarespace. Make your next move, make your next website. So we're sitting here in our Baltimore offices, second time recording a podcast here, and I have Drew Westervelt, who is a pro lacrosse player in multiple geographies, MLL and NLL. I'll get into the differences distinguishing both pro leagues. He's a former world champion with Team USA. We played together on that team in 2010. He is huge in stature, 6'5", 200 and probably 40 pounds.
I wish.
A goal scorer, though, right? So I think the Zlatan Ibrahimovic, for all of you soccer fans out there, soft hands for a guy that is of his size and stature is unique to our sport as it is soccer. He's a record setter. He went to the University of Maryland, Baltimore College, which we all know as UMBC. Is that right? Did I say that?
I believe it is University of Maryland, Baltimore County.
Baltimore County.
Which is even more ridiculous.
Okay. He's a co-founder of HEX Performance. That company is what we're going to dive deep into. And I pulled this from his website. Drew's rejection of the status quo and his experience in team management, both on and off the field, has led to the development of this product. And he is changing what clean means for laundry today. Drew is a dear friend of mine and very unique modern athlete to this space. And I want to be clear that there's no place card holder here, ladies and gentlemen. There's also no branded unfair advantage, which traditionally we've seen with a lot of our guests, looking at the power of their platform, audience, and influencer marketing as a way to enter the space that they're in. I think Drew has built his company off of other on-field attributes like work ethic, certainly an amazing passion that he has for problem solving and storytelling in this space. And we'll dive into more as we approach certain topics. But this is the duality of the modern athlete. So Drew, let's start with your upbringing. Sure. You and I both grew up with learning differences. Talk about yours.
Yeah, I grew up in Bel Air, Maryland. I went to a small Catholic school there and struggled. Homework was awful every night and really had trouble comprehending what I was really trying to do and putting thoughtfulness into my work. So that was a pretty big barrier, especially with my parents, who were just like, hey, something's not working here. So got tested for dyslexia, and obviously that was the issue. And was really fortunate, and I got the ability to go to a school called Odyssey in Baltimore. I think your foundation actually supports now, which is incredible.
When did you get screened for dyslexia?
Third grade.
Third grade.
So I did first through third grade and struggled, and then I went fourth through eighth at Odyssey, and it was a small school in Baltimore on Roland Avenue, right near Hopkins.
Yeah.
It's like 8 kids in a class, a lot of one-on-one. You had one-on-one tutoring, and then you had your normal classes.
And they do like a lot of creative learning, which I really love about the learning difference private education market. For example, like a history class isn't reading from a book. It's a lot of times reenacting the Constitution.
Sure. I think for me, reading isn't the issue. It's reading comprehension was the issue. So I can read something, but recalling what I read didn't exist. Right. So I read the words. It was not like everyone thinks I read backwards or whatever, but I can read the words if it's something I'm not interested in, I don't comprehend it.
So you were always able to read the words. There were no misplacement of letters, which can be the case sometimes.
Can be, yeah. I mean, there's times where I do that with numbers and things like that, but not a glaring issue. But it was more comprehension of being like, hey, I read this. I'm understanding what I'm reading, and I can either put that forth and teach you about it, or I have no idea what I just read.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I have what's called reading and auditory processing disorder, and I think that comprehension or processing is a big part of what you're mentioning. And even in sports, one thing that I often heard from my coach and multiple coaches, and they drill this in practice, is you're not listening. Mm-hmm. And I don't think they're really explaining it the way that they intend to when they say listen, because I used to fight back and say, I'm absolutely listening. My ears are perked. I want to do well. I want to win. Mm-hmm. But what they meant to say is you're not comprehending or you're not processing what I'm saying. And I think we hear a drill or we hear a slide package or a route that we need to run. We don't process it and we don't do it.
I think furthermore, once you see it, it's immediately comprehended, right? If I do something or if I'm walked through the play versus drawn the play on a board, it's a very different level of comprehension for me. And it's similar to, I think it goes back to either it's lacrosse or business or whatever you're talking about. If I can teach someone else about it, I've comprehended it. Yeah. If I can articulate it back to you, then I've got it. It's just how I get to that point, whether it's absolutely not, here's the syllabus, read it and you're going to know what you need to do. Or here's the playbook. Like might as well be in Chinese. Yeah.
Well, we've recorded over a dozen athletes, and you're the first one to sit down with a notepad and are like taking notes. I imagine that, I hope at least they're podcast related, like some topics that you want to cover, unless like you're on the side and you're closing a deal or your next subsequent round of raising with HEX. But yeah, so talk about your note taking, and when did you start developing that skill?
I mean, I have books and books and books, and that's all I do every day, whether it's what I need to get done or what my thought is, or there's really no rhyme or reason to a lot of it. I try to keep it neat, but a lot of times it strays from that. But for me, it just kind of keeps me level on what I'm trying to get accomplished or what I haven't got accomplished. If I write it down, I remember it, and I continue to look at it throughout the day. If I don't write it down, it doesn't get done. Yeah. It's as simple as that, and I forget about it. Yeah.
I think style of note-taking is really interesting because it's an artistic form of the way that we process or would like to remember particular intel or task that we're assigning ourselves. Is that a little bit having to do with any attention deficit disorder or hyper deficit disorder?
I'm sure. I mean, if I flip back through these things, it's like, it would be interesting to do over the last couple of years because it's all about like the journey or at least currently of what I'm thinking through of what I think makes sense for my business or what I've gathered through fact finding, and whether it's working with an agency or working with an individual or working with a retailer and kind of thinking through how that relationship should work. Yeah. Pros, cons, and how our decisions are made. So I don't know of any other way how to keep my thoughts straight than to kind of constantly put pen to paper and figure out, is there logic behind it? And could I articulate it back to you about why I want to do it or not, right?
And when you were in school at the Odyssey School and then subsequently at UMBC, what was your approach to academics and athletics, or was there a time where it was weighted in one direction more than the other?
I mean, frankly, I think it's always been weighted towards athletics. It's always been, I think, for a lot of athletes, a release where you're confident, right? Like,
Yep.
Odyssey was pretty cool because we started the lacrosse team there, and it was a bunch of guys like me that loved sports but struggled in school.
When you say started it, what do you mean?
We didn't have a team.
So you guys just
So in fifth grade, it was like we had like 30 dudes, and everybody wanted to play. Everybody played. We just didn't have a school team.
Got it.
We had BL, we had Gilman, we had all these great lacrosse schools around us, and we were like,
Yeah.
you know, the special school right around the corner. So we're like, we'll start a team. And a lot of our teachers were big Carolina players back in the day.
Huh.
Mike Thomas.
Okay.
He was a big Carolina player. His mom
Yeah.
was the secretary.
So there's a natural fit for coaches.
Yeah. So we had a bunch of like great staff, and we put a team together. We ended up like beating up on BL and Friends and some other teams. It was awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a release. We had something to do after school, but school was actually not that was like a change in from an academic perspective, because Odyssey wasn't a struggle. You did not want to go to school because there was nothing to be scared of when you got there. It's not like you weren't prepared for something, right? That was the worst thing for my academic career, was like knowing you had something, knowing you weren't prepared, and knowing you couldn't prepare yourself.
Right.
And the teachers weren't able to help you prepare because there was 30 other people they had to worry about.
So lacrosse is one of its traditional hotbeds that are here in Baltimore, and then Long Island and
Sure.
New York. I often tell folks it's not Maryland and New York. It's Baltimore and Long Island, because there are certain outskirts in each state that have never seen lacrosse before. What attracted you to the sport outside of the heritage of growing up in Baltimore?
I played competitive baseball, and I tried catching.
I didn't know that. I knew
Yeah.
you were a really good soccer goalie.
I played that was in high school. I played and in middle school, but I didn't play goalie till high school. But before lacrosse, my brother was a big baseball player. Baseball for me, it wasn't enough action, so I either had to pitch or I had to catch. And I played in fourth grade or third grade. We played for the Hartford Sox, which was like a equivalent of AAU basketball.
Okay.
I played 60 games one summer.
Oh, Jesus.
Exactly, and I was like,
Yeah.
1, it needed a time limit. 2,
Yeah.
I didn't touch the ball enough. And 3, I didn't have a passion for it.
Right.
So I was like, I'm out. And then I get this great opportunity to go to Odyssey. School is great now. I'm not hating life or hating academics. Then there's this great idea from one of my classmates to start a lacrosse team. I'm like, I'm in, let's do it. So picked it up in fourth grade because of Odyssey.
And did you like it because you were really good at it? Or were there areas like, we always get this question, why do you fall in love with lacrosse versus sticking it out? We know why baseball's out, but like say soccer or football or basketball.
Yeah.
Or
I think I love, especially at that time in life, lacrosse for me was very different than lacrosse is today for a lot of youth. There wasn't club teams, so I played lacrosse in lacrosse season, then I played AAU basketball, then I played competitive tennis, and I played, travel soccer. So I loved being an athlete. I loved playing all these sports. And for me, lacrosse, I think you hear it a lot. It has a lot of sports morphed into it. What I loved about the lacrosse was the time you needed to spend to be confident with stick skills. And that's something I found really interesting when I picked it up in fourth grade. It was like, this is a really cool sport.
Yeah.
And at the time, lacrosse wasn't easily accessible from digital platforms. You could watch Saturday. It was like, the Toyota lacrosse game of the week, and you look forward to it. And you'd
Local
watch
ABC in Baltimore.
Yeah, you'd watch, and then you go in your backyard and emulate, Connor Ford ripping a shot or whoever was playing at that time. I remember. Yeah. And then you'd be like, I'm going to go try and emulate that. You go in your backyard, and it was a very interesting process.
And why UMBC?
I didn't have a lot of options.
From where you weren't
I didn't
recruited.
have this stature at the time.
Size?
Weight or height, yeah.
But you were tall and...
I was tall and lanky, yeah. In high school, I was like 6'2", 6'3", 165 pounds, 170 pounds.
Yeah.
Played for John Carroll in high school, so we were in the B conference in this Baltimore area. Played soccer and basketball in high school and loved that as well. And the only places that I got really looked at was UMBC, Delaware, and Drexel.
Okay.
And Mundorf was my chaperone at UMBC, him and Andy Gallagher.
What do you mean chaperone?
Like my, for your
on your recruiting visit?
Yeah.
I thought Brendan Mundorf was your age.
He's a year older.
He's a year older.
And so is Andy.
Huh.
And you know Andy and Brendan well. And they were they lived together their freshman year at UMBC, and I'm like, I love these guys.
Yeah. So your recruiting visit,
I felt like, yeah, this is where I feel comfortable.
Yep.
There was benefits to Drexel and Delaware that probably had better facilities at the time and things like that. Maybe a better college experience, if you want to say it that way. But I felt really comfortable with those guys.
Yeah.
So I'm like, yeah, that's what I want to do.
Relationships were really important. And you led the country, you're a top 5 scorer in the country at UMBC. And then you were drafted, I see, number 4 overall in 2007.
Yeah, that was a surprise to me.
Lacrosse. Why was that a surprise?
I think it was Brendan's. I think Brendan allowed that to happen.
Well, because Brendan was drafted the year prior and had a great rookie season.
By Brian Reese.
Well, you were the 5th leading scorer in the NCAA. So
I'll be honest.
I'm sure that had something to do with it.
Yeah. But, I think still it was, we had a different college experience than you did at Hopkins, right? We made it to 2 years. We made it to the first round and then the quarterfinals. And then we lost to Delaware. So we never really had that, we made some great runs. It was awesome to be in the finals. And I think that kind of...
You don't have the notoriety.
No.
Yeah.
And I think, we were good, but we beat Maryland, which was a big win, but we didn't really shock anybody.
Yeah. But you look at, this is really interesting to me because while pro lacrosse is, if you were to look at the economics of it and time spent, it's a part-time pro league. And that's different than the mainstream sports like the NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL. But the strategy around drafting from GMs to VPs of teams is still the same. And there's a little bit of value prop in the conference, looking at NFL playing in the SEC. But there's more value prop in being able to decipher skill sets that transition well to pros. And in your case, having a hard shot, having great stick work and great size equaling potential durability, when we'll talk about the 10 seasons that you've played, I think they got it right. And now resources committed in MLL is far less than NFL, but parents at these events that I'm with, they're saying, hey, my kid's playing Division III, Division II lacrosse, and are they ever going to play pro lacrosse? And I say, hey, look at the NFL, look at the NBA. There's guys that have played all over, guys that are playing in Europe now that are all-stars.
You want to know what I really believe happened?
Okay.
I had no thought of playing pro lacrosse until the end of my senior year.
Yep.
Didn't even cross my mind. Brendan had been doing it. I'm like, I had never heard from anyone. Didn't know if I thought I'd move on into the, the working world, whatever. And that was fine with me at the time. I got a call randomly from, Doug Locker well.
Yeah.
And he was at San Francisco at the time. He's
Doug
like,
Locker's a legend amongst GMs and pro lacrosse.
He's like, you interested in playing
Shout out Doug.
to San Francisco? And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I didn't know. You haven't heard from anybody? Yeah, love to do it. So I was like, I was kind of interested. This is like this latter half of my senior year at UMBC. Fast forward, go to the MLL combine, played decently, got picked up from Brian Reese in Denver. And I attribute a lot of it to Brendan's success. I really believe I would never have played more than one game. I went out for my first practice and played probably the best. They put me at midfield, and I had 2 or 3 goals in practice dodging down the alley, which I've never had in my life.
Right.
One was left-handed, stuff that never happens.
So you're a
right-hander. Played well in practice.
So for our audience out there that doesn't know lacrosse, dodging down the alley would be, Drew is an attackman, so he's pretty much like a forward in soccer, and he was playing out of the midfield. So going from Cristiano Ronaldo. Yeah, I guess. I'm having really trouble explaining it, but dodging down an alley means running down the side and shooting on the run, and Drew is more of a time and room, feet planted power shooter. Correct. So they were asking you to do a skill that you hadn't done before.
Yeah, they had guys that were already had a position on attack. This new guy from who knows who I was from. Right? It was guys like Sims and Sonky and Brian Langtree. Guys that they go in and make fun. It was a great locker room.
Yeah.
So I have this practice that I might have blacked out the whole practice. Played well.
You're excited probably.
Yeah, I was pumped. You're in this awesome field. You're in Mile High Stadium at the time. It's perfect grass. So
and the owners of the Outlaws are the same owners as the Broncos.
Correct. So they give me I play that next night, and they put me on attack. They move one of the veteran attackmans to midfield, and I play attack. I had 4 and 3.
Yeah.
It was the most fun game I remember because it was all fast breaks. It was fun. pick the ball up the end line. Where was all this stuff happened. We played with all these older guys that just ran.
Yeah.
And that's really why I think I still play. I got lucky and played it well at practice. They gave me an opportunity, and I somehow put up points. And I stayed somewhat consistent throughout my career. But I really believe if you look at it now, there's great players that come to practice, and we've seen it for 10 years.
Oh, yeah.
And probably have a bad practice and have a bad first game, and they're gone. It didn't mean they couldn't have a great career.
I mean, I think that is the same in all industries, really. In sports, we see it more often because as veterans, we can feel skill and you see mental lapses and it translates directly into goals or assists or not. There are matchup discrepancies that sometimes if you're a rookie, you go out there and you've got the best defender in the league, just happen to be playing against you on the other team, and it's not a good showing.
Right.
I do think that there's a lot of sports psychology to what you're talking about, which is interesting, and like having nothing to lose.
Sure.
If you were now, it's you are the 4th overall pick, feeling like, hey, I'm lucky to be here. So you're describing your experience like you were the 40th overall pick, but you were the 4th, but it still felt that way to you, like you were the 40th.
I didn't feel like I should have been the 4th.
But you were.
But I was. And I was kind of shocked because I'm sitting there with guys that I played against and with in college that had much more impressive careers and much more impressive games.
Yeah. So you still had nothing to lose.
Correct.
And there was that mentality, and you often are citing like rolling the ball out, running, and pro lacrosse is very similar to the NBA in terms of the change of pace and style versus college. So college basketball, you have all the schemes, the full court presses, the slowdown of the Big Ten offense. In the NBA, these guys run up and down. They say they don't play defense, but it's really probably for a separate show, talking about the dynamic of the athlete and basically what I think is impossible to play the caliber style of defense you see in college and NBA because the range that these guys have is incredible, and their ability to thrash and their size. And I think it's similar in pro lacrosse or frankly in other pro sports where you just have the premium athlete with more range, more skill, more speed. So you have to just change and almost give more cushion defensively. But that's what you're referencing, and you played for 10 seasons. You and I often kid about fitness because it's not necessarily a part of your routine, nor is nutrition. but I think
it's not funny.
but I find it interesting in that you were able to play for 10 seasons at an all-pro, all-star level. So what is it in this stickball sport? I'd imagine it's similar to hockey, that you lean on as your biggest value?
Well, first of all, not taking fitness and nutrition seriously is a huge regret of mine. Because I think I would have been a much more well-rounded player and more effective. I think I have a short-sighted look at I was consistent enough to be acceptable to myself, but I was never willing to put in what I should have to be. It's the reason I didn't play on the 2014 national team. I had gotten to an age where my fitness had deteriorated enough and I wasn't willing to work on it. And there were younger guys that came in that performed better. I think there's a role that I morphed myself into of this shooter and this feeder, sometimes a feeder. Most of the times a shooter and a distributor in fast break situations. And man up is where I scored a lot of goals. I got that way because of my fitness, not because I wanted to be there. I should have been a Dodger. I should have used my body better.
Yeah.
And that's a big regret of mine.
Because you were a Dodger in college.
Yeah, very much so. And it's something that also I worry about after sports, right? You don't want to do anything good enough to get by, right?
Yep.
So that's something I've been working on, right? And is establishing routines that are better fitness, better health, executing at a higher level. All of those things are things that I'm working on and I'm frankly struggling with because it's HEX or MLL or national teams are very similar in that there's no evergreen to it, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a topic that I joke about and I'm Big Bear and all this this stuff, but I mean,
you can say shit
and shit, and it's something in hindsight. I wish I, because you were a champion of it, right?
Yeah.
You found assets like Jay Dyer.
Yeah. He was my strength and conditioning
correct.
coach. Yeah.
And
Ken Johnson.
And provided full access to guys like me that were buddies with you. And some very much took advantage of it, right?
Yeah. Well, I think it's also worth flagging that your bandwidth became, your available bandwidth shrunk as you went through the process of discovering the entrepreneurial blood that you've always had, I believe at least, and launching this company, HEX, back in 2014. Is that right, roughly?
Yeah.
So you had mentioned the national team, that being in 2014, and there was work leading up to, as any startup founder or co-founders know, prior to signing your paperwork, be it as an LLC, S Corp, C Corp of your choosing. There's all the concepting, there's the discussions on structuring from a cap table standpoint, from a brand, how you're going to operate. And so for you, limited bandwidth, you had to make a decision. And a lot of times, I think with some of our other athlete entrepreneur guests, is that they're cash flowed enough from their on-field wages to build a team to support these multiple initiatives while giving them the bandwidth they need every day to train and eat well. And we're at a shortage of that in an alternative sport. So we really have to either grind and find more time and sleep less, or make certain sacrifices, which you did.
Sure.
And I talked about earlier in the show that many athletes leverage brand, network, or audience. And my guess is that you've leveraged opportunity, work ethic, and intuition. So launching HEX Performance, talk about the idea and process first.
So it's been a very much a living document. I think the insight that I had 5-6 years ago has always been right. It's how you bring it to market that's been the challenge. And you mentioned my own network isn't significant. So it became, how do you create a community of people who care about the problem you're solving? Because I'm in the CPG space, right? I'm a product, not a service.
Yep.
So the original insight was that I wanted to provide a product that actually cleaned and protected this new type of fabric or gear that emerged quite significantly when we became professional athletes. And in college, I was very much supplied cottons and Champion t-shirts and never had issues cleaning them other than my gear. Gear being synthetic, which is a plastic. So I wanted to figure out, it felt like all I was doing was putting fragrance on it, and there was a real health issue here, that if I'm not cleaning what's in my pads or my apparel, then that's mold, mildew, bacteria that's alive and well in it. So the original idea was to do fields and turf and locker rooms and weight rooms and potentially gear.
And that was under a different name.
Yes. It started as Odor Armor.
Odor Armor.
Then we quickly got a cease and desist from Under Armour.
Okay.
Because we spelled it ARMOUR, but I own the domain.
Did you cease and desist because it was like, hey, we've got this corporate giant and let's do it? Or did you feel? Of course, yeah. So it wasn't like, hey, we're fine here? Or it's probably both?
I had no financial backing. I had nothing. I was like, this would, at the time I thought naming the product something that was descriptive of what it did would be intelligent.
Right.
After we lost that name, we didn't really think about it because we didn't know if this was going to be a sports specialty product or a grocery product or what. So we named it Odor Balance, but it really didn't have any meaning to it. From then, we moved the product. So what we really realized, and why HEX, why we have so much passion around it, is we believe that fabrics have significantly changed what they used to be.
Yeah.
People have challenged cleaning them, and they blame the fabric. What really has changed is fabric has changed, and detergents haven't. We never had a problem cleaning cottons. Now there's this huge athleisure boom. Everyone's wearing synthetics everywhere.
Yep.
They can't clean them, and then they end up throwing them out because they stink.
Most of the time, we don't know what our shirts are made of. We just know they feel really comfortable now.
Sure.
And it's like a blended product, and
Correct.
It can be a blended of a number of things, right?
Yeah, sure. So natural fibers are like cotton. Synthetics are plastic. So you're actually wearing a hard surface, but they feel really good.
Right.
So like 60 to 70% of of the fabrics people are wearing right now are synthetic or plastic. So essentially what we did was we were like, I don't think traditional products are actually caring for these items. So, and people know the challenge, right? We've been in a spin class in a yoga studio, whatever, and you work out and you put that shirt right on, right when you start sweating, it's not...
It smells.
It smells, right? It stinks.
Sometimes I'll pull my spandex out after like 2 washes and like we'll put them on and immediately start smelling.
So that was the insight. It was like fabrics have changed, detergents haven't. Why isn't anyone addressing this need with a real solution? And the only solution is heavy fragrances. Well, why do you need a fragrance to clean something when then it's not really clean if you're using a fragrance?
Right.
So we did some testing and we found that with traditional laundry detergents on synthetics, every successive wash had actually bacterial growth in it. And the mechanism for cleaning it was heavier fragrances.
Yep.
So it really wasn't cleaning anything, it was just covering it up.
Yeah.
So in my mind, that was like the light bulb of like, here's a place to play in, right?
So let me ask you though, because this, to me, this feels like so disruptive in that we've basically been just deodorizing our product in washes and thinking we're cleaning them.
Sure.
With cotton though, when everyone was 100% cotton, was there actual cleaning? Yeah. So it cleaned with cotton. So it's just the material base now. That's what throws everyone off. And the former detergents, the detergents out there, in the archaic sense, aren't capable of cleaning with new products.
Well, I mean, it's
really killing the bacteria.
I mean, there's nothing sexy about laundry. It's a really old, lethargic category. No one goes in the laundry aisle and is like excited to be like, "Ooh, what's new today?" It doesn't happen because you've had
millennials specifically.
Huge corporate giant like Procter and Gamble, Church and Dwight, Hinkle, huge companies that have had products for 100 years.
Yeah.
That product technology hasn't changed. What changes is what they're using it to clean. So if you think about, it's nerdy, but if you think about other cleaning categories, like if you look in the household cleaning section, there's a different cleaner for every surface in your house.
Yep. Granite,
wood, linoleum, whatever.
And then there's all purpose, which you think are bullshit. I'm just drawing that conclusion.
Yeah, okay. But there's a reason why there's cleaners for certain surfaces, because certain chemistries work better to clean that surface.
We're in a specialty market world right now, which I think bodes well for what you're going after. You say the same thing in fitness, right?
Sure.
No longer are people going to, or I guess if it's a Planet Fitness, it's a Walmart of the fitness industry where it's a low price point enough to get a solid workout in. But like very few people are saying, hey, I'm just going to go to the gym and freelance. Right. There's the specialty of spin, yoga, boot camp.
That's right. So what we're saying is like, no one's really thinking different. It's already happened in all these other cleaning sections or in the beverage category. There's a different beverage for any type of lifestyle, right? And you shop that. In cleaning and laundry, everyone believes that laundry detergent is going to work on everything. Well, there's new surfaces in your laundry. So you now have synthetics, you now have cottons, you now have all these different things, and you're asking this 100-year-old technology to continue to work on it.
Yeah.
What doesn't? So it's gone to fragrance. So we're not trying to be the new Tide.
Would be good, I presume.
It would be wonderful. But I believe that there is a large grouping of people who invest significantly in what their wardrobe is. That synthetic wardrobe is morphing from what you wear to the gym to your everyday wear. It's in what you're wearing today. And there is a substantial grouping of people that want that to last longer.
Yeah.
They don't want to throw that out.
Well, I think that's absolutely right. I often wonder how the big brands are putting such a high price point on a workout t-shirt now. I understand the sourcing of materials is expensive, but people are investing $50 in workout shirts now, and I imagine they want them to last, as you say.
But it's not the fabric's fault.
It's not the fabric's fault.
So that's where it is right now. They're charging a lot for the fabric. But
what's stopping Tide from taking this bacteria-killing solution that you guys have? You have intellectual property on it?
We do have intellectual property. The other thing is they're set up to manufacture very quickly and a lot. So what they're doing is they're not really willing to reformulate their entire chemistry. So what we did was we went and sourced chemistries that work extremely well on synthetics, which penetrate a hard surface like a plastic and clean it and protect it. But if you can penetrate a hard surface, a soft surface is like a cotton's really easy to clean. So we go both ways, right?
Yep.
Whereas if you use traditional chemistries, they're very effective on cottons, but have struggle penetrating a hard surface. So they would have to reformulate, and it's utilizing the complete opposite spectrum of chemistries that work well with hard surfaces.
Yep.
So essentially what we really like about our product is if you were going to put the attributes in Tide or whatever traditional detergent that perform the functions we perform to clean and protect, it's like oil and water. It becomes a chemistry piece where they don't jive together. So you can't just say, oh, that's a great attribute, I'm going to build it in my formula.
Got it.
It becomes reformulating everything, or else it doesn't essentially stay stable.
The other thing that we know about consumer packaged goods is it's a capital-intensive space.
Very much.
And you've raised some money?
Yeah.
And so what has, let's talk about the first rounds and your strategy around them, and then potentially subsequent ones.
So I think like a lot of startups, you have to be really confident in what you're doing and why you're doing it to ask someone for money.
Yep.
Right? Like that's a process I really enjoy, and it's a really lengthy process because not only you have to be confident yourself, you have to be confident that you can articulate to them why you're doing this and why it's a good investment, and also build the relationship, because no one writes a check off of an idea. They write the check off their relationship, and they trust that you're actually going to execute what you say you're going to do. And that took me a while to understand. It was like a lot of people love the concept, but they didn't know who I was yet. So it's a 6-12 month process of going through that play. So the first round of funding we raised and was at the end of 2015, and that was we were really confident that we had clarity in where we wanted to go, the strategy behind it, and what market. And that was basically instead of going to sports specialty stores, we wanted to go to grocery, because that's where we believed people buy the vast majority of their detergent, and also work on .com. So not go the sports specialty route.
Yep.
So that's what we were clear on. We were clear on the SKUs that we wanted to do, and we needed to clear up our back end so we could actually manufacture at the level that could support this.
Yep.
So our first round of funding came from a strategic that manufactures and blends the chemistries we use, because we really wanted quality assurance there.
Yep. So that was an equity round?
It was.
Yeah. And so they were actually participatory in taking this business to market.
Correct.
Which made them strategic.
They're strategic, which was interesting because yes, they receive revenue off of us ordering product.
Right.
But they also have an equity play in the business. So
and that was first.
Correct.
And then what happens next?
So then that was in 2015. We took to market in grocery, and we got into about 1,500 grocery stores from April of 2016 to the end of 2016. So we used that time to go get into grocery and get our product on shelf and learn. So we worked with Wegmans and Harris Teeters and ShopRites and really just some Target, and really just understood the marketplace and really figured out, are people looking for a new product? Do they even see it on the shelf? Is our packaging working? How are we going to communicate to these people? What's the pricing need to be? All of those things became trial by fire. After we realized that we had some favorable data of people use the product and come back and buy it again, right? That's what we want to know. If someone uses it, do they have a great experience? Do they actually buy it again? That's all we wanted to figure out. If that happened, then we have a story to go sell, to go raise capital and grow.
And you have a business.
Right.
Right.
So you mentioned that it's capital intensive to get into retail and support that retailer. So we had a good data set from working with them in 2016. And during my financial, working with raising capital in 2015, where we ended up working with this strategic, we also sourced family funds and private equity firms and venture capital firms. So we had some relationships there. And a lot of those relationships continued even though we made the original investment.
And was that a convertible note?
No, they were both. All of our have been equity raises.
Yeah, so you had a seed, you had a family and friends, you had seed, you had seed plus, or are you in your Series A?
A. We just did our A.
You just did your A.
So so we ended up electing to go with that strategic investment. But we, like I said, we had sourced and met and had decks and sent financials and everything. And we kept sending financials as we went through the process to keep them in tune to what we were doing, because it's very much a relationship, right? Not only do they want to see the idea, they want to see how you're performing, and are you doing what you said you were going to do. So one of the private equity firms that we looked at for that first round is who we ended up using for this second round that closed in March of this year.
And how much did you raise?
We raised $2.5 million.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mark Andreessen often says that fundraising is a 365-day a year process, because you just can't say, okay, we need to go raise money now, let's go out and do it. As you mentioned, you've incubated these relationships from start to finish, and sometimes there's a lot of back and forth, and you have to be stoking them even when you're not raising.
Well, I mean, for us, we're lean. We have 8 people. We're 8 people, but we operate like we're 80 or 800, right? Everything we do is, we're sales and marketing is our actual employee base, but we leverage third parties that their expertise is manufacturing, their expertise is packaging, their expertise is shipping product. So yes, internally we're 8 people, but when we leverage out into their network, it very much explodes into a much larger business.
Do you have anxiety around being thin in that department, or is that of preference? And I'll give you an example. Bill Belichick, who was our first guest on Suiting Up, prefers having a leaner staff. He has the leanest staff in the NFL.
Really?
Because he's able to, he would prefer having fewer people taking on more tasks, because that creates more trust.
Sure.
And fewer conversations that go around, and he's able to accomplish much more in their meetings that they don't have very often.
Sure.
Because they're able to trust and go out and accomplish multiple tasks individually.
We just became 8 people very, very recently,
Yeah.
which has been a rewarding process to be able to hire people. Recently just brought in a new CEO or CFO, excuse me. Just brought in some more marketing support. So to do really guerrilla and field tactics, get out and get into gyms, give samples, play a different ball game than a huge, P&G would play, right? We would never win with outspending. It's just not going to happen. So you got to be more authentic. You mentioned, influencer marketing is a big thing that we believe in, because I think word of mouth advocacy is so much more powerful than a branded message.
Yeah. We, as introing your company and identifying the problem and the product and the service that you can deliver that can solve that problem, education is probably your biggest hurdle.
Sure.
Because in this space, you don't have but probably 10 words or fewer to use on a package, and you often don't have people in the aisle that's pitching against your competitors on shelf. So what are you guys doing? You mentioned having troops on the ground, influencer marketing. How do you accomplish the educational piece? Unfortunately, you can't record podcasts all the time that allow us to record for as long as we want.
Exactly. No, that's been a learning experience. I don't think anyone has the right answer. I think marketing in general, whether you're a product or a service, is so rapidly changing. I mean, you see it with what you're doing personally and for your business, of how you market yourself, right?
Yep.
That has morphed significantly in the last 5 years.
Yep.
Even how your products and your brands that you support market have significantly pivoted. So I think it's a challenge and it's an opportunity for new brands, right? I think it's all about authenticity, talking to people who really care, not just talking to people. Yeah. I think digital platforms have given us the ability to isolate who we think is really worth talking to, and then learning if that demo is actually responding, or who you think you should be talking to really isn't who you should be talking to. So for us, we believe right now, through what we've tested, is there's 2 very different sides of our business. One is retail and one is brand awareness. You can't ask each of them to do both. So we have very specific retail tactics we do in store, whether it's price promotions or end caps or direct mail that drive direct to retail. The other side is all your education, and that's where digital comes in. What we've seen is that if we put branded messaging out, even though our content we believe is good content, click-through and engagement is still not as high as if it's third-party or influencing word of mouth. Yep. So we have morphed everything. Instead of buying Facebook campaigns for us to, hit reach and frequency with our videos, we've said we want to get product in people's hands, let them use it, and then we want them to use their voice, the voice that's grown their following, to talk about us. Yeah. If it's not our talking points, that's okay. Yeah. But we want to drive authentic traffic back to our web to learn about us. And we've seen that engagement and click through and all that is significantly higher, when it's Paul talking about authentically, this is why I use Warrior versus Warrior saying this is why you should use Warrior.
Yeah.
I think it's two very different thought processes.
One of our portfolio companies, Funding Circle, sent out data to investors around modern marketing and how many tactics there are in channels where you can spend on influencer marketing, social media, which is probably more mainstream now than alternative, probably 5 years ago as it was considered. But the data now still suggests that the most powerful conversion metrics come from word of mouth, by far. Word of mouth, 70% conversion plus often, because that's your most trusted source is your neighbor who's telling you, hey, I love this. And direct mail, believe it or not, still converts really high. And I mean, we consider the post office defunct. We look at just anything handwritten as less efficient than typed. But direct mail is still powerful. Are you guys direct mailing or no?
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
am I off?
no, I'll kick it over to you. You live this, right?
Yeah.
If you do it to people, you've done it to Bill Belichick.
Right.
If you write an email to Bill, or if you send him a handwritten thank you note, what do you think is more impactful?
Yeah, well, he'll write a handwritten thank you note to my handwritten thank you note.
Exactly.
We'll go back and forth, and I'll just be like, okay, coach, you win. Yeah.
But it's significantly more powerful. Yeah. I don't think there's like rocket science behind it. It's just the ease to do it isn't there.
It costs money. It
costs more money, but I think it's like penny wise, dollar foolish, or whatever that saying is, right? Like that's where we've kind of sit back and say, yeah, we can. It's like we've talked internally about. We've met with agencies that are like, we can get reach and frequency with pre-roll and banner ads. And they're like, and I'm like, well, how are you going to get your reach? Well, we're going to mandate that people watch the pre-roll. And I'm like, that infuriates me as a user of YouTube.
Yeah.
If I have to watch an ad before the content I really want to watch, that's like
it's tough.
It's tough. So I'm like, instead of going that route and saying I can pepper people with my message when they don't really want to hear my message, or I can use third-party advocacies or influencers or all of these other direct mail tactics where I can give people information through a conduit that they want to receive information from. I think direct mail works because it's physically something in your hand and you can put your why on it, right? Like, this is why I'm sending this to you and here's the offer for you to actually try.
Yeah.
I think it does work with email, but I do think something handwritten or
well, you're
tangible.
Taking notes here. We acknowledged it to start the show because there's the comprehension component to it, and taking a piece of mail and opening it and seeing a deal that makes sense to you. And a lot of it comes down to luck and timing. Are they out of their current laundry products? And if so, you maybe got them at the right time. And other times they're just like, hey, this is the right deal. Let me try it. People want to experience new things. I will say what has to work in those pre-roll campaigns is you have to grab the audience quickly, and it has to be something unique. And I know that from a branded content standpoint, you guys have been working on a campaign over the past year that you're still fleshing out.
Sure.
And it may be out there by the time this podcast drops, but it is a co-founder of HEX, like one that I'm sitting across the table from, completely naked with the bag of HEX covering your package. And I call it millennial marketing. I see it now living in New York City on the subways especially, because those are where all the millennials are transporting on a day-to-day basis. And every brands that I see out public facing are using different strategies in the subway focused on that demographic they know is in the subway. Sure. And I know your demo that you're targeting is millennials, and this millennial marketing is often more risky, irreverent, and eye-catching, and it has to be quick.
Yeah. I mean,
what's the deal? You got naked. Was that your idea?
It was a collaboration of ideas. The insight is like, hey, what if we took things to an extreme measure, right? Our low-hanging fruit is the point of sweat, right? That's where we want to get people to think about changing this habitual laundry habit of should you be using something else, and do it at the point of sweat, be at spin classes, be at things like that. So the insight is let's go to an extreme measure, right? and say that what if things got so bad that people couldn't clean their clothes that they've resorted to working out naked? And we thought that was a really funny insight. That gets to the why we do what we do very quickly. Like, you can't get your stuff clean, it stinks, so you've resorted to working out naked. It's kind of comical.
Yeah.
So we did some work. It is comical. So we did some work and shot some footage, and it came out very good, but it came out very scripted.
Yeah.
So we've had it for, I don't know, 8 months, and then we were like, there's something missing here. So we looked into a number of different options to intro it. And that's where what you're referring to is there's a number of different intros we've shot, some more risque than others, because we believe that me standing in the perfect laundry room with the perfect folded laundry does not make me think differently about laundry. What we want to do is say to people, why aren't we making a change here? And saying that to the people who actually understand very clearly the problem that we're solving.
In major market cities where millennials are living, are they still going to public laundromats?
Yes.
Is that a place where you're going to go?
Mm-hmm. So
does that cost money? Like, can you just like set up a pop-up shop on a day-to-day basis?
I think that's why we like Guerrilla, right?
Yeah.
I don't think it's like we have to play a different game, right? We're not going to be able to say, oh, we're going to sponsor your laundromat. We're just going to show up and give you samples, give you a coupon. I think you have to play a different ballgame and not be disrespectful, but just be at the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
And we believe that, sporting events is a lacrosse tournament is a great place to be, because not only do you have the problem, you also have the purchaser there watching. So is it a mom or a dad there that you can interact with? And I think the days of setting up a tent and waiting for people to come there are gone.
Oh, yeah.
I think, you need to be different. You need to come with branded attire, and you need to come, have fun with it, right? That's where I think in the past, it's like we have to operate in these traditional silos of how you market, and I think it's dead. I think you have to have fun with it. You have to have your own spin on it and run with it. And that's what we're trying to do now. And that's why we've been looking into some more edgy content. And hopefully it's comical, not, crude. Offensive. And I don't believe it is.
I don't think it is either.
The funny part is our package is very unique. And everything about our product is unique. We picked the package because it ships well, and we're in a .com era, and things are going to keep moving there. Yeah. Bottles do not ship. It has a tap, like a wine tap.
What's your relationship like with Amazon right now?
It's interesting. We're still learning the space, because you can work direct with Amazon through Vendor Central, or you can work with third-party sellers like Seller Central. It's interesting. There's different pricing. There's different controls you have on either side.
Right.
It's an interesting marketplace.
Are you worried about voice software through Alexa continuing to become more ubiquitous, and them leveraging that point of sale through their shopping lists and white labeling all product?
Sure. I I see it in retail. Like stores like Wegmans. Wegmans are beautiful stores, but they do a insane amount of business of own brand.
Yep.
And they do it because of the margin, right?
Right.
If I can make my own detergent instead of sell you and Tide, and people buy it, they're gonna keep doing it.
Yep. And that's been going on for years.
It's the same
I'll
thing.
buy Safeway brand, Target brand stuff because it's cheaper.
You have more faith in than others, and that's all based by brand. Like, you may buy Wegmans private label, but you may never buy Giant private label, or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. You just may have more faith. They're all probably made by the same third-party vendor. It's just a different, like, bottled water, right?
Do you think it's going to become, from a retail standpoint, CPG, a race to get exclusivity with those third-party vendors? And I mean, that costs a lot of money, right? So I'm thinking more holistically, is that how Amazon eventually takes over the world?
I think Amazon's going to continue to grow in the CPG space. I think you look at what Walmart just did. They just purchased Jet. Yeah. Because they're trying to figure it out.
Is that $3.3 billion or $3.1 billion?
You're seeing what Dollar Shave Club's doing. People are trying to figure it out. And I think the more you can create an ease to purchase, value add, make people feel like they're part of a community, those are all things where our generation is going to continue to generate or to gravitate towards, right? Like, I think the .com experience, even with shopping, right? You can rent the one way. You can order a $10,000 dress, wear it one night and send it back, or never wear it, and no dollars are exchanged other than your monthly fee or whatever. Versus 10 years ago, you'd have to, like, you're going to buy a $10,000 dress.
Yeah,
I mean, it's changing retail.
Yeah.
There's a lot of change. I don't think it's, for us, it's not a war between retail and it's .com. It's optimizing which one makes most sense. And if 10 years from now, people don't buy laundry detergent at retail, we're not going to be there.
Yeah. How are you staying current and or keeping up with your specific market through consumption of content? Where do you look for a lot of the knowledge that you're gathering regularly?
You mean from a content production?
Yeah. Are you consuming podcasts, books? Are you subscribing to newsletters? Are you just out there reading? Right. I mean, it's obvious that your level of intake is far and wide, and it has to be when you're running a company in the space that you're in.
I mean, much like we started off talking at the beginning of the show, is like reading, and my reading comprehension lacks significantly unless it's something I have real interest in, or unless I can get a short article and video. Then I'm good. I did 6-8 months ago join or worked with a guy that had 6 or 8 guys in a business group that met once a week, and we kind of there was some vulnerability there. You kind of opened up about challenges and what you're working on is well, for me it was fitness, it was health, and it's things I'm still trying to implement. It was about putting a great routine in. So I have not read a full book since middle school, and they made me at Odyssey. It was like Great Gatsby or something like that. Yeah. But most recently, I mean, there's just like they're all books that all these guys like Tony Robbins and Tim Ferriss, right, that are what I gather from them all is they're all about positive routines and positive thinking, more so than here's what you do.
Yep.
Which I find, I think it always becomes much more simple than you really think it should be.
Do you have a daily routine, or by nature, do you embrace inconsistent routines?
I comprehend the need for it. Yeah. I've internalized it that it makes a lot of sense, right? My morning should be getting things done that make my day productive, not waking up and being like, I'm behind, and writing an email on the way to the office.
Which I think I feel very often.
2 huge, very different starts to your day. I struggle terribly, but I do comprehend the change I need to make. So the books have been, one's The Slight Edge, which I actually read because we had to for this group last year, which was tough because we had to come prepared to talk about it, which brought me back to my hate for school before Odyssey.
Yep.
But it was good because I'm 32. I can handle that, right?
And The Slight Edge is written by Jeff Olson.
It is, and I'm going to leave it with you.
With me?
I am.
And what are some slight takeaways?
Again, it was all routine-based.
Tactics, yeah.
It's all about routines. And
do you meditate? How do you keep mindfulness amidst all of the challenges and responsibilities?
I've tried it, basically through our conversations.
Yeah.
But again, routine's a challenge. So it's something I see value in. I just haven't implemented that routine, and it's going to happen though.
Yeah. You've traveled the world.
Sure.
Primarily because of lacrosse.
Yeah.
What are some of your favorite destinations you've been to?
Favorite destinations. I love Toronto.
Huh.
And we've played played a lot of games in Toronto in the Air Canada Centre. The Keg Steakhouse, fond memories. Of
that was going to be my follow-up. What is your recommendation in some of these areas? So we have Toronto and the Keg.
That was a favorite. Denver. Yeah. I played indoor and outdoor there.
Let's take us out of North America.
Oh, sure. You didn't specify that.
Okay.
Japan in college. We went to Japan.
There you go. Yeah.
Junior year. We stayed, what was the name of that? Roppongi. It was nuts. A lot of fun.
Was that a hotel?
No, it was a city or an area we hung out in. It was Japan was great, really, just to see a different culture and how they act so differently than us.
Hopefully there's a Roppongi hotel, so I'm not...
There's not a Roppongi hotel.
Completely embarrassed
Roppongi's
by my lack of Japanese geography.
No, we stayed in Roppongi and Shibuya were the areas. I don't remember the hotel name. But they were great. That was with UMBC, and I think they do it every 4 years. So the least they did when Zim was there. Prague. You were in Prague.
Yep.
That was an incredible
Beautiful
trip.
city.
So we did that with the U.S. indoor team. And England.
Yeah.
Right? England was great because that was the 2010 world team. So, I think lacrosse, though for me, it hasn't been a monetary windfall, has been a relationship windfall and a travel experience and door opening mechanism that can't be replicated.
Yeah, and I think emphasized, though, in the way that you talk about your business and the way you approach it is throughout our conversation, you've used win. And like, can we win in this space? We'll never win if we do this. Sure. To me, that feels like crossover from sports and something that without sports, you probably wouldn't have at least that mindset or that drive, ambition to not only do well, but do really, really well.
Definitely. I think a lot of what's happened, like sometimes I try and, even though like with HEX or with sports, I may not be exactly where I want to be, but if I take a second and look back and be like, hey, that was pretty crazy that we did this, and this in the last 3 years, right? I didn't know if that was going to, before a financial raise actually happened, I didn't know if it was really going to happen, right? And then it does, and that's like, okay, what's next? So for me, I just hope as I keep moving forward that, whether it's lacrosse or business or whatever, that, you hope you make the U.S. team, then you make it, then it's okay, what's next? And I hope I continue to do that way and or operate that way instead of being like, hopefully I'm at a level sometime where I've achieved plenty, but still looking for what's next.
Yeah.
And I hope that's a mindset I keep, because I never thought I would have played lacrosse as long as I did and have the opportunities I did.
Yep. And
sometimes I don't think HEX is going to make it to the next month, and here we are. So.
Yeah. Well, it's great. I think it's a great place to end.
Yeah.
Continually driven to achieve while also appreciating what you've accomplished. It's a fine balance, but really difficult to get to. If you're in one place or the other exclusively, you're going to fall short. Thanks.
Agreed. Thank you.
Have you had breakfast?
I haven't eaten yet.
Are you interested?
I never do breakfast.
We should add that.
You think?
To your daily routine. I definitely think so.
I think I should do.
You know where the origin of breakfast comes from?
No, I do not.
Breaking from your fast, which is the 8 hours, hopefully, we're getting the night before. Sometimes 6 to 8 is ideal. But yeah, well, then it's critical, right?
I think we should do coffee in the morning. Maybe I had a juice from Starbucks, and then maybe a breakfast lunch. So I can continue to.
So that's actually called a brunch.
No, I want to break from my fast is still continuing.
Yeah.
From last night. So the fast needs to be in there.
Let's end our fast.
At lunch?
It's about lunchtime, yeah. Thanks, buddy.
Okay.
Back from breakfast with Drew, and I am wrapping up this podcast with our outro. What an incredible conversation. Honestly, the purpose of this show was to uncover the duality of the modern athlete, and representative of that, Drew Westervelt, being a current all-star professional lacrosse player and an all-star entrepreneur. That'll do it for this edition of Suiting Up with Paul Rabil. Thanks to our sponsor. Please support them the way they support this show. Also, make sure to subscribe to Suiting Up with Paul Rabil on either Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to your pods. And as always, I'll catch you next week.